I think it's killing too many kids today, and a lot of it, I don't want any other parents to have to suffer like I do. It's horrible.
More than 1 year since the beginning of the pandemic, and COVID cases are finally coming down in Indiana. As more people get vaccinated, WRTV is examining what Hoosiers are dealing with as we try to climb out of COVID.
Our Stephanie Wade joins us now in studio, looking into a deadly issue exacerbated by the pandemic. She uncovers how the state responded, what hundreds of families across Indiana are now going through, and one potential solution that is inspiring some hope. Stephanie.
Mark and Amanda, as we reflect on the past year and the effects of the pandemic, mental health needs to be discussed. It took a toll on many people, shaking many Hoosier lives, whether they lost jobs, income, or were impacted in any way by the coronavirus, causing so much damage that we saw a 50% increase in overdoses last year in Indiana and a 32% increase in overdose deaths.
Last thing he says, I'll be back later. And later never came.
Last month, Mark Harrison lost his 23-year-old son, Zachary, to a drug overdose.
It sucks as a parent because I feel like, I failed. I couldn't save him, I couldn't protect him.
Harrison says his son suffered a traumatic event when he was a child, and he struggled ever since.
I think they prescribed him Adderall, then Xanax, and it didn't take him very long to find out that Xanax numbs the pain.
There, Zachary's substance abuse began.
He would get in so much pain as the years gone on, the tolerance, he had to find something stronger.
The pandemic, Harrison says, only exacerbated his son's anxiety and feeling of isolation. Connections and community, all key ingredients to recovery, were halted over the lockdown, including in-person recovery meetings.
The worst place for a person with the disease of addiction is to be in their own head.
And sadly, that was a place many went to over 2020.
It's been a brutal period for people who have this disease, and my cousin is just one person.
Matt Gonzalez also lost his cousin to an overdose during the pandemic.
He was 29 years old when he died.
His cousin Taylor passed away in May.
You may have a stereotypical image in your mind of what an addict is, and he wasn't that. He was healthy, he was vibrant, he was incredibly social and outgoing.
Gonzalez says Taylor struggled with substance use disorder since he was a teenager, but was doing well in recent years. He worked out every day, had a great job at a restaurant downtown, but when the pandemic hit, he lost his job and his mental and physical outlet of going to the gym every day.
He had kind of built this, really systematized life that helped him stay safe, and the pandemic, for him and for so many other people, just, ripped that away.
What manifested, Gonzalez feels, was an epidemic of overdoses within a pandemic, seeing a 36% increase in overdose deaths over last summer alone.
People with substance use disorder just got, their collateral damage.
We forgot about the opioid crisis because of the pandemic. We quit talking about it.
In early May, we began to see the indicators that that overdoses were going up. Our naloxone administrations were beginning to increase as well. And we knew if we didn't intervene at that point, we were going to have a much bigger problem.
Indiana's Drug Prevention, Treatment, and Enforcement Executive Director Douglas HUNTSINGER says emergency medical services administered naloxone, the overdose reversal drug, 67% more last year. In May of 2020, the state acted quickly, providing an additional 25,000 doses of naloxone across Indiana. And most recently, Governor Eric Holcomb announced they would partner with Overdose Lifeline, run by Justin Phillips, who lost her own son to an overdose, to supply all 92 counties with what's called a nalox box.
So it's easy to get in.
These boxes make naloxone available to anyone 24 hours a day without having to interact with someone.
Think of the concept of an AED box, that we see often in public spaces. It's a similar concept.
Naloxone is already available at county health departments. Local nonprofits might also carry and distribute it. But Huntsinger says this Nalox box is a new way to eliminate a critical barrier that's preventing people from getting help.
Have access to it without having to speak to a person. We know that stigma is a big problem.
So we keep a quantity. I think it's actually missing 2 right now.
The kits include 1 dose of naloxone, instructions on how to use it, and referrals to treatment centers. They used this Indiana Health Department heat map to determine where overdoses are happening and naloxone is being used, to place the Nalox boxes in neutral places that wouldn't feel intimidating, Phillips says.
City parks, homeless shelters, very neutral places.
Beginning to place them already across the state.
One county with a box in 2-week period, 60 doses were taken out of the box. Another one had 90 doses in about the same 2-week period.
After a year of such loss in our state.
It makes me sad, for sure, that we still, are losing these many lives when I believe that we don't need to.
Phillips says this is a key first step in reducing fatal overdoses and saving lives.
All these kids have an amazing heart. They really do. They don't wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to break my mother's heart by not coming home.
And thank you to both Mark and Matt for sharing their families' stories with us. As of now, there are about 60 Nalox boxes placed across the state. Phillips tells me those 60 boxes have been used hundreds of times, so potentially hundreds of lives have been saved so far this year. Now, to the south, in Orange County, for example, a recovery center there has distributed more naloxone out of their Nalox box in a 3-day period than they were able to do in 3 years. The goal is to have at least 2 boxes in all 92 counties. The larger counties with the higher population like Marion, Lake, Vanderburgh, and Allen will have more than 2. In the studio tonight, Stephanie Wade, WRTV Investigates.
Stephanie, thank you for sharing that story. Obviously something that impacts a lot of families and can bring them some hope. And this does remain a problem. Preventing people from seeking help and getting the word out on these Nalox boxes is still a work in progress. Justin Phillips says some counties are so small, coordination is limited to figure out who will monitor the boxes in each county. To find one, go to the website naloxbox.org, scroll down to the section, find a Nalox box, click on that, and then a map will pop up. Just zoom into Indiana. We will have this map and much more information on this initiative to combat the opioid crisis in this story on WRTV.com and the WRTV app.